Thank you. Okay, so I'll read this. Yes, I will read this. Okay, temperature check. Raise your hand if you are a digital publisher. Okay, raise your hand if you are a professional network marketer. Raise your hand if you are a content strategist. Okay, here's the trick. You all should have raised your hand for all of those. Okay, so Lonnie and Alan did. I had to eat the microphone, right? That's making one. Okay. Okay, so what I'm going to talk to you about today is online influence. And, okay, I won't say anything to anybody else, but tell the truth. How many of you came here today because you thought, well, the social media thing, it's happening, I really need to get in on this thing, and I want to improve the sales of my products and services? Come on, raise your hands. Right. Okay. Thank you very much for your honesty. Okay, that's the end game. There are a whole bunch of other steps that you need to do, and you're starting to get a little taste of that from the other presentations today. The first thing that you have to do, and it was brought up earlier, I forgot who said it, you have to listen. It is okay to start out in social media and just listen. Watch what other people are doing. Get in on Twitter. Just watch how people talk. Look at the little codes that they use. Find out what's appropriate, what's the appropriate protocol, and what's the etiquette. It's totally okay to do that. And once you do that, then you start throwing little mini grenades of content out there. Engage, start participating, and being a part of the conversation. When you start doing that, it starts getting really exciting. At that point, you need to start building your networks. And I'm going to talk a lot about that actually today, because that's part of building your influence. When you expand your networks, you expand your voice. When you expand your voice, the messages that revolve around you and your products and services are heard by more people. Guess what happens after you do that? You make the sales. Okay, so if it's the only thing that you learn from this entire summit, and you've already heard it a half dozen times today, don't sell in social media. Do not do selling. Don't do sales pitches. Don't sell your stuff. No one wants to hear it. Okay, and there are much better ways. Okay, so if you the right one. There we go. So don't be that guy, okay? Don't be the skeezy used car sales guy. There are 3 attributes for you to build influence online. There are 3 attributes that you have to put out there. Value, network, and credibility. Let's just go through those. Value. Let me you can read the bullets here while I tell you a story. A year ago, how many people heard about the Chilean miners that got trapped for several weeks? Everybody heard about it, right? Watch the news when they pulled them out of the mines. And what an amazing story that they survived, right? Remember what they were wearing? $150 Oakley sunglasses. Wow, these Chilean miners, they're styling. I was amazed. I wanted to be a Chilean miner. No, I didn't actually say that. But it was a kind of an odd thing to see what had happened. The Oakley Sunglass Company realized that there's a situation here. These people, tragic situation, have been trapped underground in complete pitch black darkness for weeks. And this was going to be a hard transition. They didn't sell it, didn't tell people that they were doing this. It wasn't a hard sell. They said, okay, we just want to send our product down South America, 33 pairs, less than a couple of $1,000, $150, $5,000 retail, a couple of $1,000 of product. They sent them down just to do good. It resulted in about $41 million in extra sales. Why did they do it? Exposure, marketing, brand awareness, word of mouth, all of the above? Yes. Okay, so were they informative and adding value? Was it timely? Was that campaign focused on their product and service? Were they concerned about themselves, or were they concerned about other people? Was it an interesting thing to do? Unusual, really, really unusual thinking. But they put their product in a place where it needed to be. And they did it selflessly. And it was an exciting event to see these people survive, right? So when you come up with ideas for your products and services, the worst thing you can do is spam. No sales, no spam, please. Okay? How many people have heard of The Long Tail, a book written by Chris Andershon, executive editor of Wired magazine? The concept of the long tail gets applied to almost everything in social media, almost everything on the web. Great concept. I'm going to apply it to your network. So, how many people have heard, well, you shouldn't overdo your network. It's better to have 100 really good, solid, raving fans than it is to have 1,000 people who really don't care about your service. How many people have heard that before, right? And it kind of sounds logical, doesn't it? Well, I say, why not have 1,000 people who are connected to you, and 100 of them happen to be raving fans? The other 900, maybe not so much. But it's way better to have 1,000 than it is to have just 100. Okay, so let's go way back to the day that you were born. You open your eyes, and you look at your mother, and there's your first network connection. A network of one. This is a pretty powerful, quick connection, but it's going to grow quickly thereafter. You see your dad and your siblings and your aunts and your uncles and cousins, and the neighbors come over. Very quickly, your network expands up into the hundreds, and you're only a day old. Well, a psychologist from Oxford, 1992, wrote a paper that talked about the stability of network groups, and that human beings can only sustain and have stable networks of around 150. He said between 100 and 230. But the stability of the network will start to break down, and the bonds between the people will become less strong if the number gets too great. And it kind of makes sense. I can't really be super intimately close with 10,000 people. It's physically impossible and time constrained, right? So what happens when you think about this small network and you see strength of, the numbers of people who you're connected with, and the line right here, the closest, is how strong the relationship is. And the farther you go in that direction, the relationship is less strong, right? So your parents, your immediate family, and the neighbors who you interact with. Okay, when you're a little kid, this is what your social graph looks like. But as we get older, we go off to school, our graph gets longer, and we start to get what's classically called the long tail. So if you take a look at your professional network, this is the graph that Chris Andershon describes. Your social network includes thousands and thousands of people that are out here. You only interact with them, say, once a year, maybe. You shook hands with them at a conference. People that you meet today are going to be way out in that tail, right? Lonnie and Alan from me are way down here, and I've got my immediate family. Well, Robin Dunbar wrote this, that created this idea that our social network the close connections can only be 150. I believe that. Okay, but let's talk about what happens next as we expand our social networks. The chart kind of looks like this. So if you take a look at the people that you're in your business networking group in the local Rotary, and the soccer moms you interact with every Wednesday afternoon, and all the people that are in your life, both personally and professionally, the numbers fluctuate, even if those people are further out. Now, I've got, I think just a couple days ago, I passed 41,000 followers on Twitter. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that my graph starts out just like this, but out here I get this enormous hump of people. It's hundreds and hundreds of people high, and it goes on for a long period, okay? So, are these people worthless to me? No. They're extremely valuable. Here's mine. This is the whole point of the presentation. This is how you should view your network. Grow your network as big as possible, because the person who I clicked and followed, that's the extent of my relationship. They clicked back and followed me back. That's a pretty weak relationship, right? They're way out here. Well, what happens if they read a couple of my tweets? They're moving a little bit closer to me, right? And then they decide to retweet me. And then they start to answer a question that I posted. And then they visit my blog. And then they actually send me a question by email. And then when they get the correct answer or the great, this great network interaction, then they call me up and they talk to me. Oh my gosh. And then we collaborate and we become business associates, or they hire me, or whatever the situation is. How many people were in my Twitter sphere network? 41,000 people. I want all of them to start making this journey towards me. Okay? So let's talk about how that's going to happen. That's how you should be viewing your network. Okay? So how you build influence is by sending out valuable stuff to a large network in a credible way. You build credibility by, and you've heard this several times today, consistent, high value engagement. All three really important words. Strongly suggest that if you do not have a media calendar, a calendar of scheduled events, you have to do that right away. So how often should you tweet? How often should you do Facebook posts? It's all a game, and everybody's got their opinions. The point that no one will disagree with is it should be scheduled. Okay? You have to send out good stuff, high value content, and each of these formats, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, blogging, are going to have different definitions of what valuable is. Is a news post versus a link versus a short blurb about a product or service? What's going to be considered valuable to your target audience, and what am I willing to write? That's how you should be asking. Engagement, knowing who you're targeting, where they are, when they're available, is all really important stuff. Okay, to kind of illustrate this, Dana Ritchie is a client. Put you on the hot spot here, in the spotlight, Dana. Dana has a company that does barcode labeling solutions. And Dana drank the social media Kool-Aid 3 or 4 years ago and started blogging. And just recently, I convinced him to drink a little bit more of the social media Kool-Aid, and he is now diving into it head first. He's been building up his Twitter presence, and he's over 1,000. I think he just passed 1,000 followers. So congratulations to Dana in the last 3 months. Okay. Dana not only drank the Kool-Aid, he is fully embracing social media, and he calls me up and he goes, well, I have this idea, and I just want to run it by you. And I thought it was the most amazing thing. I'm calling it the Paladin ID strategy, because that's the name of his company. Dana, please tell them what you did.
My strategy was, there were 2 major trade shows in my industry, and one is in Chicago, one's in Las Vegas. Sorry. And the one in Las Vegas just took place a couple of weeks ago. Well, I decided that it was just too expensive to attend, and I tried to promote the show on my website and then blog about it, and then I would tweet about the show because I thought it was real relevant for my space, and it would make me somewhat of an expert, or help me be an expert in my field. So I did that. I called the show, I got the hashtag, and I monitored the show for the 3 days it was going on. And I was tweeting and engaging people during those 3 days. Well, the funny thing was, I had a lot of conversation. I thought I got a lot of exposure. I had a vendor call me and say, I'm really upset with you. And I said, why? He said, you didn't stop by my booth. And I looked at him and I said, well, I'm in New Hampshire. How would I stop by your booth? And he goes, I thought you were on the floor. So it's one of the strategies that I'm going to implement. And I think I got a lot of benefit out of the show without even being there. So.
Okay, so I convinced Dana to tell that story because I knew there would be no other barcode labeling solution providers in the audience. And you're only allowed to use that strategy for other conferences other than the AHA Social Media Summit. So, good. Okay. Let's talk about the tools, because I want to wind it up here quick. Refollow.com is the only paid service that I use right now. Everything else is free. I could spend an entire day talking about Refollow and its strategies and how it works, and little tricks and tips for the filtering and the sorting. For a single domain, it's like $20 a month, and it helps you find focused people. So let's think back to that social graph with all those humps, right? I have 41,000 people. How many of them do you think are in the world of social media, internet marketing, web development, bloggers, entrepreneurs, executives, the people who are my target market? What do you think percent-wise? 40,000. Not 40,000. Yeah, 80, 90% of the people I follow are in that space. It is real easy to get 100,000 followers, to follow 100,000 people. It takes just a few months, and you can game the system, you get 100,000 people like in a heartbeat. But they're going to be, what? Lou, who are they going to be?
Chinese porn stars.
Chinese porn stars. If you want Chinese porn stars, you can have as many of them as you want. And that one is Lou Horseman's. Lou, I'm gonna steal that one from you the next 10 times I say it. I give you credit, but it's mine after that. Okay. Okay. So refollow.com is a tool that you should very strongly consider if you're going to ramp up your Twitter following and follower management. It allows you to be ultra focused, follow people quickly, find the right people, and tie it with a couple other tools. It's an awesome way to get huge value out of your Twitter stream. How many people have a smartphone? How many people used it today for something other than a phone call? Okay, look around you. Okay, if you don't have a smartphone, you have to get one if you're going to take this seriously. The smartphone is going to be your best friend. Okay? Learn to use it for all of your different platforms. We've talked about today a lot about social media monitoring and jitter jam, and we talked about lots of approaches. Even if it's just like Google Alerts, keeping an eye on what's being said out there, what your audience is saying, who's saying stuff about you. This is really, really important, and you can't afford to be detached from it. Okay? I'm not saying that you should be consumed by it and anchored to your phone, but it's really important that you stay connected if you're going to do the social media thing properly. I put the last slide up here, but I'm actually going to talk to it. We talked about what constitutes online influence, putting out good stuff to a large managed network that's highly focused on your target audience, and that's the big one, build your network, build your network. But what you do has to be credible, right? Look at the smiling face and the consistent use of names up there. For my personal brand, I use my last name, but I've got an unusual last name, and the two people who I had lunch with, their last names were Smith and Smith. This is not quite as easy of a situation, but it is possible. Laura fit in the last video that we saw. Her online handle is Pistachio. She created a new online persona with the name Pistachio, and anything that you look up online with Pistachio, you'll find her. Okay, so if you're going to build influence, be influential in your space, build a large network with whom you are influential, you have to be consistent and build a credibility even with the things like your handles and your photograph. Smiley, happy face is a good thing. Okay, thank you very much. Have time for a couple questions. Any questions? Yes? What other tools do I use to build my network on Twitter is the question. I am a TweetDeck fanatic. I follow Clout, but I'm as a metric, as a way of measuring success. But as of last night at like 8:30, Clout massively changed their algorithm to the better. They started integrating Facebook as a major component of their. Facebook was a part, but as of last night, it's way more important to their algorithm. Because I focus so much on Twitter and Alan and I have a much more balanced approach. Alan went down a couple of clout points. I dropped 24. Just stick a hot fork in my eye. I was so upset last night. But then, as I'm talking to Alan, he says, "Own it, Kevin." I'm like, "Okay, I'll own it." So well, here's the thing: you don't. It's the great advice that I don't give. To own it, I have to say to myself, and I have to know in my heart of hearts, it's not the number, it's the process, and that's what the presentation was today. If you put out the high value stuff, it doesn't really matter what the tools are. So Hootsuite is another great one. Laura fit in the last video. She talked that Lonnie was interviewing. The company that she started was called 140 at 140.com. It is just tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of Twitter resources and links and tools. Okay.
Thanks.
Any other questions? One more. Richard.
Kevin, when you made that move to Michigan, what year was that?
That was spring of 2009.
At that point, you were just telling me about
And you didn't listen to me, did you?
And how many followers do you have?
What's that?
How many followers on Twitter do you have then?
I started out and I dove into it just modestly, and for the first year, I built up 4,000, and it's only been the last 8 or 10 months that I've really taken it seriously and tried to figure out what kind. So we heard on a slide earlier from Carissa about what's a great headline. Oh my gosh, what's a tweet? 140 characters. It's a headline, right? If you want people to be engaged and click through and retweet and click on the short URLs inside your tweets, you have to know exactly what she talked about. Learn how to write great headlines. And in the process of doing that, I was able to build up a large following. Okay, thank you very much.